Yeah, first of all, let's be clear. There are two cases, and the court issued very different decisions in the two cases. On the one hand, the broader mandate coming out of OSHA, which applied to all employers who employed 100 or more employees, that's been stopped. That's been struck down as outside the authority of OSHA. Basically, the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision saying you need to go back to Congress and get authority. You don't have it. There's another mandate as well applicable to healthcare workers, particularly of organizations that are involved with Medicare and Medicaid. That was upheld by the Supreme Court. So it was a split decision for the Biden administration.
And it's a victory for business groups, 26 of them, for 27 Republican-led states. Did this fall very much down your typical political lines, or was this more complicated?
Well, I'm reluctant to attribute politics to the Supreme Court, but to your point, the three dissenters are typically thought to be the so-called liberal justices, no question about it. So it did fall down that way, absolutely right. But it really, at base, is a dispute, and this is relevant to the entire business community. How much authority do regulatory agencies have? Mm-hmm. How much has Congress delegated to them? And this was a case in which, with respect to OSHA, the broader mandate, the Supreme Court said, no more. You've got to go back to Congress. There may be a big problem here. Maybe vaccine mandates are a good idea, but that's for Congress to decide, not for a regulatory agency like OSHA. And it was relevant to the court in their reasoning. They said, OSHA's never issued this broad a mandate on any health issue ever. So that's some indication they took of probably don't have the authority to do it.
David, you bring up an interesting point. I'm reading a similar piece in our Bloomberg opinion piece from the editor of the National Review, where he says it comes down to not whether you're pro-vaccine, pro-mandate or not, but the age-old question in this country of federal mandates versus states, and states wanting the power and not these sweeping federal mandates. How are you thinking about, and then on a state-by-state case, how this plays out if they have firmly said we don't want the federal mandate controlling us?
Yeah, there are two issues here, I think, Taylor, and you would understand them well. One is federal versus state. You're absolutely right, and we've seen across the country a real battle, and a federal system is not too unusual to have the federal government want to do things, the state saying, no, it's not your business. The other is between the regulatory branch, which is delegated from Congress. It's sort of in between the executive branch and the legislature, the Congress, and the Congress. And there is a thread through, particularly, I'll go back to what we heard earlier from Caroline about the so-called conservative justices are very concerned that we've gone too far in this country in delegating to those regulatory authorities who are, after all, fairly insulated from any political pressure, a lot of important decisions. So I think, for example, Justice Kavanaugh is very strong on this and thinks we've gone too far. So there are two issues here, state versus federal, but also Congress versus regulatory authorities.